the render complete, let's pull everything into the compositor. If we look under the View Layouts menu and drop into the compositor, we'll pull in both of our render passes. Passes get all passes. We have a background pass and our rain pass. Actually, just going to make sure that the start and end frame of the rain pass is actually from frame 1. Okay, so that looks pretty good there. I'll close that down. And to composite the two of them, we're just going to use a simple over operator. If we look down in the composite tools, we're going to middle click and drop our over into the graph and use the background output image as the background of our over and the rain pass output as the foreground of our over. So we get our rain effect looking something like this. Now the whole idea would just be to obviously fade the opacity of the foreground layer over the background, so you can get the sense of rain rather than a thick solid. One of the other things that I could start to do, if you notice we have a nice alpha channel, is to add in a background layer. So I'm going to go back into Soft and create another layer. Switch back to the default layout and create another render pass. I'm going to create a new empty pass, and I'm going to call this one my physical sky pass. I'm going to use this to create a background gradient. I want to render a range of frames, just a single frame render in this case, from the camera's point of view, and I'm going to add an environment shader to the render pass. So under the environment tab, I'm going to add in the physical sky shader, and if I select the shader and inspect it from the shader stack, I'm going to lock down the physical sky property page, and I'm going to set up the render pass so that the foreground images, the buildings and the rain, are actually hidden. Remember, they're already rendered off in other layers. So for this physical sky pass, I can take all the objects that make up my background partition and hide them. When dealing with the physical sky, we can draw a render region to get an idea of the physical sky. You'll notice that the horizon line is a little too high. So if we drop the height down below our ground level, that should do just fine. If I was to actually just switch back to my BG pass for a moment, it's about the right height. So if I switch to my physical sky pass, yeah, everything will work out just fine here. So one of the things that I can do when working with my physical sky is to control the haze in the sky by using the haze slider, just to desaturate or to kind of add a little bit of a noisy, kind of grimy gradient to the horizon line, and also desaturate the horizon so we can remove some of the tint, some of the blue from the atmosphere. So we're getting more of a gray, kind of cloudy day. You can also take the sun direction and change the sun direction by moving it on the x-axis. I'll take something like that and render that off. I'll render the current pass, generate a single frame, and take that pass back into my compositor. If I pull in the new pass, I can add it as a background for this image. So I'll come in and maybe I'll just rearrange these a little bit. I'll go and get another composite over operator, and I'll take the two images like so, and then like so. So we have two consecutive overs, and I can continue to view the last over and fade the raindrops in even more. The next thing I might want to do is, again, if I just find a good balance here between opacity, there we go, opacity and transparency, is to maybe add a little bit of desaturation or a little more color correction, a little more interactive color correction to my physical sky pass. So I'll go into the Color Adjust tab and use some color adjustment nodes to color correct the physical sky. I'll output the physical sky into the color correct and output the color correct into the input that previously held the physical sky pass. I'm viewing the last layer, and I'll edit the color correct. So as far as the luminance goes, I could darken the background image somewhat. And if I was to have a look at the histogram, I could add a little bit more darkening to the sky, just to make the tone feel a little more ominous. Then compensate on the rain pass by editing the opacity of the rain. Bringing it up just a little more so we start to see some of those splashes. Okay, so I'm going to put all that together and create a final output. Move on to the File Output category of nodes. Export or output the over into the input of the file output, and we'll do a final edit, frames 1 to 226 or 230. We'll output as a composite in our composites folder. I'll call this one the final rain comp. As a Softimage pick, and I'll create my output from there. So the render actually goes fairly quickly. Actually, just wait in scene here until that render finishes. There we go. And we'll finish off by launching our final flipbook. So you can see we get a fairly decent foreground rain effect with some small little splashes visible on the ground if you look closely. So I hope you've enjoyed this series of tutorials, again, integrating ice into your workflow for a more interactive environmental effects and character effects.